Hello, my name is Angela Ramirez, and today I'm going to be talking about economics. I'm going to be relating it to income inequality, poverty, and discrimination. So first of all, we're going to start off by talking about what exactly economics actually is. According to Chapter 10 in the book Survey of Economics, it is a social science examining how people choose among other alternatives. It's related to scarcity and opportunity cost, and now you may be asking yourself, what is that? So scarcity is actually a problem presented in everyday life. It's the problems that humans have way too many wants and way too many needs, and not enough resources to actually satisfy them all. Opportunity cost is the value of the opportunity not taken. So what economists do is they calculate things like this. They calculate cash flow. They make predictions for a future economy based off of the past economy and the present. So next we're going to relate this to income inequality. We're going to start off by explaining how it is actually measured. It's measured by family structures, so maybe where you come from, where you lived with, how many people are in your family, their background with education, how their attitude is towards their job, how many jobs they've had. And so the way you do this for the whole nation is that you calculate the income of the whole nation. Then you split it up into 5 quantiles. The first one being the lowest, or the one with the poor people. And then the top one, the 5th one, being the highest, which is also the people with the richest. And so here you can see the Lorenz curve. You can see the distribution of a perfect economy that would have equal distribution for everybody in the United States. This is what the Lorenz curve is, this green line. How it actually is this blue one actually represented from a study from 1968. And then in 2010, they did another one. As you can see, it's slowly growing because the income inequality is getting worse and worse in the United States. Being one of the most industrialized countries in the world, it actually is one of the countries that has the highest amount of people that are considered to be poor. So you may be asking, is there mobility? Yes, there is. You can actually move up from the 1st quantile to the 5th quantile. You can move up, you can move down. So, of course, that's part of what they call the American dream. You just have to work for it. Income and technology is also related to the income that you have. So in order to have a job nowadays, you have to know how to use a computer. You have to be able to navigate through systems that you may not have needed to use before. So even in small jobs like factories, maybe 40 years ago, you did not need to actually be able to use a brand new computer and navigate it, but now you do. So that definitely changes the amount of people that get those jobs. Income inequality is also related to tax cuts. In 2003, President George Bush actually administered a big tax cut, and it actually favored those who are in the 5th quantile. As you can see here, before the tax cuts, they paid 78.7% of the actual taxes. And the 1st quantile, per se, paid 0.5% of the taxes. So after the tax cut, you can see the biggest change in the top quantile because they got 67.7% of the tax reduced from them. Meanwhile, the 1st quantile got 1.2% of relief. And some people were not in favor for that, and some people were, of course. It is going to be controversial, but it did allow for those that are in the top quantile to keep more of their money, which in turn actually makes them have more purchasing power and actually more power overall over the whole country. And those top quantile is, of course, that 5% that actually do rule the country. Next is poverty. So we're going to talk about how you define poverty. There is the absolute and the relative poverty test. The absolute test is is used by the Census Bureau and by other people that have done studies like that. So like the University of Michigan. The absolute relative test does not take into account the money that people make from like welfare or non-cash things like that from the government. So it also relates to the demographics. And this is a study done by the Census Bureau in 2010. As you can see here, the people that have the most poverty are families with female households and no husband, people who do not have a high school diploma, and the next two highest are Hispanics and African Americans. So you can see something in common. It is going to be gender, schooling, and also ethnicity. Next, we're going to relate this to government assistance. As I stated before, there is assistance from the government such as welfare, food stamps. Here in this, you can see how much help there was and in what there was the most help. Here, there was most received means tested assistance. So it just means that the government is there to help alleviate some of that poverty within the country. And it actually gives it more of an incentive, and it gives you more incentive to start working again, because they installed a new policy that says that you can only have welfare assistance for so long before they just stop helping you as much. And next is discrimination. So discrimination, there is most discrimination in race, gender, and age. Also schooling. As you can see here in this graph, you will see that in 2009, there was a study done between the earnings of full-time workers. This is weekly. On average, a Latino made $541, which is the lowest, and an Asian made $880, which is the highest. This is a study done by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it was found in the University of Michigan book. Another thing that can be discrimination is stuff like prejudices or stuff like healthcare. So some people may say that discrimination is something like a company not hiring somebody because of their weight or because they don't look rich enough or look fancy enough, they don't look the part. That also qualifies as discrimination. It is not only limited to race, gender, and age. Another thing that comes to play with that is supply and demand, because companies have a demand for a certain person with a certain label and a certain degree. And nowadays you have to work harder. You have to be able to use the computer. You have to be able to have good communication. You have to get a degree. All of the stuff that maybe you didn't have to do before. Of course, you did have to do some of that before. So that is how that all relates to economics. Thank you.